Good morning. How is everybody this morning? Thank you for joining us on our Facebook Live. This morning's topic is: Are you constantly telling your dog or your puppy no? Having just got a puppy, I feel your pain. I understand. It's like having a baby. You are tired, especially if your sweet new baby hasn't learned to sleep through the night yet. That makes a huge difference on your ability to deal with stress. And of course, we still have a life to deal with: your kids, your house, your job, and the added stress of COVID-19 doesn't help anybody with their patience. Unfortunately, this puts you into a reactive situation instead of a proactive scenario. Over the 20 years I have owned dogs and the hundreds of puppy clients I have worked with, I have discovered that I have discovered that good management is the key to raising a great and keeping your sanity. Always a nice bonus. My goal is always to give the dog the opportunity to make good choices and to take away the opportunity to make bad choices. Um, Good morning, Tammy. So glad you could join us. Um, this means that my dogs do spend a lot of time in an X pen. I used to feel guilty about that, but I realize now that created the the freedom I've taken away from them has created a lot more freedom for me. Their freedom caused a whole lot of bad behaviors and caused my head to explode on a regular basis because you need constant supervision and your dog gets into stuff. And you always have to remember what you pay attention to is what will be reinforced. So that means if your dog is constantly chewing on your couch and you're constantly going over and taking your dog off and going, no, don't chew that, or don't bite, or just no, your dog is learning how to get your attention. So when you're trying to make breakfast or feed your kids or do a work call and your dog goes and chews on your couch, you have no choice. In last week's Facebook Live, I talked about how ignoring is a valid way to train, or maybe it was on my puppy group, but ignoring is a valid way to train if you can't ignore the behavior that's happening. You can't ignore your puppy chewing your couch, or you can when your puppy's 8 weeks old, but as your dog hits 5 months old and is doing serious damage, ignoring is no longer an option. So then you end up paying attention to the behavior because you have no choice, but then you're reinforcing the behavior, causing your dog to go back and repeat that behavior over and over. So the keys to making this work: exercise. Every puppy is different on how much exercise they need. And your living space, if you live in town, if you live in the country, will make a difference on how easy it is for you to exercise your dog. But exercise is non-negotiable. A tired puppy is going to be a lot better behaved because they're sleeping, and sleeping puppies are adorable, than a not enough exercise puppy. How much exercise your puppy needs to be content will change as they age, and without a doubt, the breed. A basset hound will not need as much exercise as a border collie puppy, but you've got to play with it. I currently have almost 11-week-old border collie, and I think I was actually exercising her too much. You can get into the situation where too much exercise causes them to be overtired, which again is not a good scenario because overtired means they're uncomfortable. Uncomfortable means they're bitier, they are chewier, they're just worse behaved. So you got to play with that. Management. By management, I do not mean isolation. Ideally, I use an X pen because it's bigger than a crate, but a crate can do the trick. In the X pen, she has a comfy bed, toys, food puzzles, and natural chew items such as bully sticks, and it keeps her busy. The X pen should be in a central place in your house where the action is. In my house, that's always the kitchen, but you've got to figure out what works best for your house. I am not trying to isolate the dog. I want the dog to learn to be part of the family, but learn to be part of the family calmly. So if you have little kids, your puppy's going to learn to play with their stuff. So you're not spending your time going, this is not yours, this is yours, while your kids play outside the X pen with their stuff. So the dog learns, I play with this, the kids play with that. It's good. The kids learn how to leave the dog alone. The dog learns how to leave the child alone. And they both learn to coexist in a peaceful way that allows you to get breakfast made or whatever it is you need to do. Um, so this is, especially with having children, this made a huge difference. I got my first border collie when my son was a year and a half, and they learned very quickly how to co-play. The child would play on his own, the dog would play on his own. We had to work through some of the toys. The little zippy cars made my dog crazy, so we had to work through those. But it was a few of the toys. Most of the toys, he was like, yeah, those aren't mine. And even once the dog was a little older and started earning house freedom, he had no value with my son's toys. He had value with his toys. So he would go over and pick his toy over and over and over. So it wasn't a big deal. I never had to go through constantly taking my dog toys or my child's toys out of my dog's mouth. The kid, well, he sometimes chewed dog toys, but the dog had no problem sharing. The next piece of the puzzle is mental stimulation. With puppies, they have amazing brains that are learning sponges. You want to spend tiny little training bits multiple times a day. We're at the point in our puppy's journey that she needs to go to the bathroom every about hour and a half. So every time I take her out to the bathroom, we do 2 to 5 minutes of training. That might mean I go outside and I play a name game. So I grab a handful of kibble on the way out the door, reward her for going to the bathroom, and then we spend 5 minutes calling her name or doing collar grabs. The next time I might come in and we might do working on our tugging. Tugging is a big deal for me because I work agility with my dogs, and tugging with criteria. So if I pull out the tug, don't jump at it. I use heavily in agility. I think everybody should teach this. I teach it to all my puppy clients because tugging teaches your dog. Dogs are going to tug, whether you want them to or not. Thinking about teaching them to tug is going to help put rules in that the dog can understand. So if I pull the tug out of your mouth, it's helping my dog understand how to let me pull stuff out of their mouth. It's helping my dog understand how to not jump up and grab for stuff. Think of your kids putting their hats and scarves on. Now your dog's understanding not to jump up and grab at their stuff as they're getting dressed. And then they understand how, when they're told to grab the toy. So it helps with the overall grabbing of stuff for the lifetime of the dog. The last part I want to talk about is love. Every day, you should spend time cuddling your puppy. And everybody wants to do that. But I know sometimes your puppy's piranha person and can't help themselves. So be prepared. That could mean a rawhide in your hand every time you pick the dog up, or it could be a Kong with some peanut butter in it so your dog can learn to chew or lick the peanut butter while you pet them. Calm petting, not, oh, I'm so excited to see you, because that's going to make the dog crank up. But calm petting that's going to cause the dog to learn to be calm when you touch them. And this is going to give you another step towards handling, which, if you look at my puppy group, I am just starting to work on with Wicca. So there'll be a video going up in the next few days. Okay, so that's a very quick how I do management with my puppies and how I coexist with my puppies. They earn their freedom. That means as they get a little older, I might take them for a run and then leave them loose. And then we see what happens. And older will depend on the dog. I've had, my Chesapeake had pretty well house freedom at 5 months old. She was great. The first 4 weeks with her, she was a hellion. She couldn't sit still. She couldn't be touched. She was all bitey. And then by the time she hit 5 months, she was the calmest house dog I've ever owned. She liked to sleep in, so she would get up around 9:30, 10. She'd go to the bathroom, come out, lie on the couch, then go outside and play with the other dogs. She was a great house dog. She never chewed. She never did anything wrong, but her first few months were spent in the next pen. So that's it. You test them. You constantly test them. Whenever you're ready to give them a little house freedom, you give it to them, and then you assess. If they're ready for house freedom, that means you're not constantly telling them, don't do that, don't do that. And if they're not ready for house freedom, they spend another few weeks in the pen, and then you try them again. My first border collie, was really hard to house train. So he didn't have house freedom till he was like 8, 9 months old. He spent a lot of time in the pen because he kept going to the bathroom in the house. So that's it. You really have to assess what needs to happen depending on the dog. So next, I'm going to talk about some real world situations that clients come to me with. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below, and I'd be more than happy to answer them while I'm doing my talk. I will hang around about 10 minutes after the talk to answer any questions. And of course, if you're watching this as a recording, please feel free to leave comments. I do get them and will answer them in the next few days. Okay. One comment I get, the dog thinks his name is No. And I know, I see you smiling. You've all been there. And I remember this with my first dog. It was, you'd sit down to watch TV and everybody would be like, oh no, where's the dog? And you'd have to hunt the dog down and the dog was eating, doing something. I hated that. I hated not being able to relax, and constantly being, where's the dog? What's the dog doing? And then constantly being like, no, don't do that. That affected my stress level, which then affected his stress level because it made me not happy. So this happens when the dog is getting more house freedom than they are able to handle. Like I just said, every dog is different when they're able to handle house freedom. I do give puppies house freedom, but I manage it. What this means is it's a closed off area or room, depending on your house. And I do it for a limited amount of time, and I do it with 100% supervision. That means my job when the dog is loose is to pay attention to the dog. It's not, I'm trying to make dinner while the dog runs around the kitchen. I prepare the area by picking up anything dangerous or something that the dog cannot touch that I'm going to lose my mind over. And then I let the dog loose in the room, but not panicking. And I'm not going to panic when they go about whatever they're doing. I am in the room and I have treats ready. At first, I just let them investigate. Again, not worrying if they chew something or they pull something or whatever. I've made the room. Yeah, if it's something dangerous that I missed, I'll get up and take it away. No problem. But it's not, oh my God, don't do that. It's just, hey, Bubby, let me take this away and we move on. Tiny puppies have the attention span of a flea. Guaranteed they're going to get something, they're going to do something, and then 2 seconds later, they've moved on to the next thing. So they're not going to stay committed to chewing on your chair leg or anything like that. And again, this is with tiny puppies. As they get older, we've already worked further up on what they're doing. If you start saying no or leave it, it would just be bringing attention to the incorrect thing they're doing. So honestly, just ignore it. If you can't ignore it, change rooms to somewhere where you can't ignore it. Start in a bathroom where there's nothing to chew. Pick up the bath mats, move the toilet paper, and then let them loose and do this in a bathroom. I'm in the room and I have cookies. If the dog wanders over to me, he gets rewarded. And then I say, go play, and I let him go. Pretty soon the dog's like, okay, I've checked out the room. Nothing exciting is happening. What do you want to do? And then I can start working some skills. I'll usually, with tiny puppies, I start with calling their name and rewarding them, or working their collar grab if they're at that stage. But so this starts to give them access to your house in a very positive, controlled way. I've had clients of, every time my dog gets in the living room, he runs around like a crazy person and grabs stuff and won't let me catch him. That's because every time he goes in the living room, you flip out. So you want to manage that stuff. Go in the living room and be prepared. Keep him on leash if necessary, so you can stop him from doing stuff he's not supposed to. But let him have a little access to the room, and then go in and do name game and collar grab game, building value for you in that room. Okay, the next one I hear a lot is no bite. Something to remember here is dogs don't speak human. Dogs, like people, learn by association. Basically, if you hear the word sit before you sit regularly, then eventually you will associate the word sit with actually sitting. Does that make sense to everybody? So the dog hears sit, you can give the hand signal to sit, they sit, you do that often enough, eventually the dog sits on the verbal sit. Okay, so now you say no bite, the dog bites you. You say no bite, the dog bites you. You say no bite, the dog bites you. Do you see where I'm going? Eventually, no bite actually means bite. And the problem is we're getting more and more intense as we do it. So the dog gets higher and higher and higher. Saying words will never teach your dog a new behavior. Training is what you have to do. Management in this case is what I mostly do by giving them a chew toy or a Kong or something like that. So that way they learn the habit of, I can touch you and you can chew on this. This is a behavior your dogs are gonna grow as they hit around 4 to 5 months and their teeth are all in. If you can stop it from becoming a habit by managing it, they will probably be fine with it by the time they're 5 months old. But if every time you sit down and start to pet them, they bite you and it becomes a battle every time, this behavior will last well into year, 2 years old. Keep in mind, there's some days that the dog cannot possibly sit on the couch and let you touch them. They are just too stimulated. And that's okay. Those are the days where I'm like, okay, this is not going to happen today. Here, let me put you back in the X pen, give you something to chew on in there, or maybe go for a run. But just some days you have to accept it's just not going to happen. This is one I wanted to talk about. My dog barks at me when I say no. I won't lie, this one could lead to potentially dangerous behavior. When we say no, we don't just say it. We usually use a lot of social pressure. You get into your dog's space and you're like, no, don't do that. The older the dog gets, the more we get into their space and act aggressively towards them to try to get them to stop whatever they are doing. Without realizing it, you are trying to use suppression. You're trying to suppress the dog. And for some dogs, that will work. Suppression will calm them down. And therefore, we're rewarded because what we did just worked. It got the dog to stop doing whatever they were doing. Think of it as if you have kids. Some kids you yell at and they're like, oh, and walk away. Some kids you yell at and they come right back at you hard and argue back. Same thing with dogs. If you push hard enough with some dogs, they will go into a fight reaction. These are stress reactions, fight or flight. If you choose to continue pushing, which is humans, if they bark at us, we tend to come back just as hard. This can lead to a lunge or a snap. Sometimes with young dogs, this looks like just puppy biting and jumping and barking. It's playful behavior. This is a stress reaction. So you want to be really sure that this is not happening. Your dog is clearly telling you, I don't know what you want. You're putting all this pressure on me and I don't know how to respond. You've got to look at the situation. What's going on? What do I have to train to give my dog a different behavior that they could do that I would be happy with to take this away? So I hope after listening to me this morning, you have a better idea of how to manage and live with your dog without constantly having to say no. And if you have any questions, make sure to ask them. Like I said earlier, I will hang around for about 10 minutes to answer any questions, but we'll check back regularly after that. So if you're watching the recording, please feel free to ask any questions. Let me know if you have any questions or topics that you would like to see discussed on Facebook Lives. I'm always making sure I want to give you guys what you want. And don't forget to join our group following me and my new puppy Wicca on our training journey. I will put the link in the comments below, but the group is called Raising a Puppy in a Pandemic. Okay, let me double check if there's any questions. There's not. So I want you guys to have a wonderful day. Have fun training your dogs, and I will see you again next week. Bye.